Welcome to this video from the Consultants Development Institute. I'm Priscilla Watson, a presenter with CDI. This course is Strategic Planning in Organizations and is for anyone who will be involved in strategic planning, and it applies to any type of organization. During this course, you will document your customized strategic plan. The course is in 4 parts, each of which shares highly practical guidelines and tools that you can apply right away. Part 1 gives a clear and concise description of sensible strategic planning, a description that you should share with your planners as well. Part 2 explains how to customize your planning process by considering several different models of planning to choose from. So we strongly recommend that you do the brief Part 2 before doing this Part 3. This Part 3 shares guidelines and tools to take a good look outside and inside your organization, and then to select your most important strategic priorities to include in your plan. Part 4 shares practical information and handouts to produce and implement a plan that is relevant, realistic, and flexible for your organization. Each of the 4 parts, including numerous tools, is accessible from CDI's website at consultantsdevelopmentinstitute.org. You'll benefit the most from this Part 3 if you previously went through Part 2 to customize your planning process. Let's quickly review the topics that were in Part 2. It explained how to be sure that you're ready for strategic planning, because if you aren't, then your planning now could actually make things worse. Part 2 explained that the role of your strategic planning committee is to ensure a high-quality planning process. Its role is not to decide the content for your plan. It also explained why your board should be involved in your planning, and it shared ideas for how to get them involved. Part 2 mentioned several different models of strategic planning and guided you to select the best model. It also helped you clarify what you wanted in the facilitator role. Part 2 explained how to train your planners about your planning process. It also explained how to get the strong commitment of your employees in your planning. Part 2 ended by helping you estimate the costs for your planning process. There were numerous practical tools provided to you as well. During all of Part 2, you documented your process in your template to customize your strategic planning process. During this Part 3, your decisions about your strategic priorities need not be overwhelming for you. Here are some quick reminders. Remember to consider the model of strategic planning that you chose in Part 2. Your model might emphasize certain activities in Part 3. Also, remember any culturally specific considerations that you wanted in your planning. For example, regarding inclusiveness and making decisions. Remember to use your strategic planning committee to oversee the planning process. That is its job. Its job is not to decide the content for your plan. The planning process is far more important than the plan. It's the journey that counts, not the map. So don't rush to produce your plan document. Next, don't decide your strategic priorities on your own. The most important aspects of your planning are the strategic thinking and discussions among you. Also, remember that your planning need not be perfect. If needed, you can carefully change your plan later on during its implementation. Similar to Part 2, each topic in this Part 3 mentions an associated step-by-step handout for you to reference. Be sure to look at those for each topic. After reviewing each handout, document your thoughts in your adaptable template for documenting your strategic plan. It's available from your account in CDI's Learning Management System. Throughout Part 3, the term priority can refer to what some organizations refer to as strategies, goals, or issues. Now let's look at the topics that we'll cover in this Part 3. Usually, the first step in documenting your plan is to get real clear on who or what your organization is now. That means getting clear on its mission and perhaps its vision and values too. The next step is to get clear on where you are now. Depending on your model of strategic planning, that might mean looking around the outside or inside of your organization, or both. The next step is to get clear on where you want your organization to be in the future. That includes selecting the most important priorities to get you there. Your priorities are what you should do. Your action plans are how to do it. The next part of this course, Part 4, is all about your action plans. So let's start with the first step, to get clear on who or what your organization is now. It's surprising how often all of the planners think that everyone already understands this information, but when they start to talk about it, they realize they don't. Or they find out that many others in their community, industry, and markets also have no clear understanding of what their organization is all about. So unless all of your planners have the same understanding, it's hard for them to go forward unless they know where they are starting from. The identity of an organization is usually described in its mission statement, which concisely states the purpose of the organization. The identity can further be described in a vision statement that states what the organization is ultimately trying to achieve. The identity can even further be described in a values statement that states what's most important in how the organization wants to operate. Your approach to developing the statements depends on the culture of your organization and the time available to do them. Your approach also depends on the model of planning that you choose. Also, your statements can vary widely. Some organizations include information about the mission, vision, and values all in one statement. Some are a paragraph long, while others are several pages. Remember that the most important aspect of the statements are not the documents themselves, it's the discussions to produce them. So don't rush to get them written. However, if you find yourselves arguing over a certain word to include in a statement, then you might set a time limit for your discussions and then just pick a word for now. It can be changed later on if needed. If your planners continue to struggle over what to write, then they might wait until they've done the next step in planning, which is to analyze your organization's current situation. That might give them an even better impression of what to write. The handout, How to Approach Your Mission, Vision, and Values Statements, also provides this information. The following process has been used many times to draft a new or updated mission, vision, or values statement. The guidelines are also specified in the handout, How to Develop Your Mission, Vision, and Values Statements. The first step is for a small committee of 2 to 3 people, for example, a board member, the CEO, and an employee, to be appointed to write the draft. That committee writes the draft of the statement according to certain design criteria for the statement. We will soon share design criteria for each of the statements. Then each person reviews the draft alone, to give careful thought as to whether the draft of the statement really met the design criteria for that statement. Then, if time permits, as many members of the organization as possible meet in small groups to discuss their feedback, especially if the culture of the organization highly values inclusiveness. Then the draft of the statement is updated with the group's feedback, and the drafted statement is included in the draft of the overall strategic plan. Otherwise, if there is not time for the small group discussions, then each individual's feedback is provided to the committee. The draft of the statement is updated and included in the draft of the overall strategic plan. Now let's look at design criteria for a mission statement. Using the process that we described, the committee would consider the following design criteria or questions to answer when drafting the mission statement. What is the overall purpose of our organization? Who are our primary markets or groups of customers? Nonprofits might consider primary communities or groups of clients. What results do we aim to achieve for our customers? What are our primary products, programs, and services? How is our organization different from others? Will our mission statement be understandable to all important groups, inside and outside of our organization? Will our statement give us clear guidance when we're making important strategic decisions? Write your drafted mission statement in your adaptable template now. A vision statement is important to all models of strategic planning, especially the organic model, where many people are working together to achieve a long-term vision. However, the committee that drafts the vision statement might first consider whether to use a grand vision or a strategic vision or both. A grand vision depicts a long-term, very inspirational vision. A strategic vision depicts the realistic status shortly after the strategic plan has been implemented. Here are some suggested design criteria for the committee to use to draft a vision statement. The draft of the vision statement should answer, what are our hopes for the organization? For our customers? What would they look like if those hopes were achieved? Would that image focus and inspire all of our employees, your collaborators, your suppliers? Does that image seem clearly aligned with our mission and values? Would the vision statement be understandable to those inside and outside of our organization? Would the vision statement give us guidance when selecting our strategic priorities? Write your drafted mission statement in your adaptable template now. A values statement can be very useful in guiding the behaviors and decisions of an organization, especially for various cultures that highly prize their values. Some organizations prefer to include principles rather than values. Principles are statements about beliefs, and values are usually one word that defines that belief. Here are some suggested design criteria for the committee to consider when drafting a values statement. What should be the most important principles to guide how we interact with each other and our stakeholders? Can we realistically adhere to all of the principles? Do any of the principles conflict with any of the cultures that we work with? Can we defend the principles to others and to ourselves if they are challenged? Would our values statement be understandable to those inside and outside of our organization? Are the principles articulated clearly enough to give us guidance? For example, if we encounter an ethical dilemma. Write your values statement in your adaptable template. When analyzing where we are now, in addition to the statements, it's useful to document a concise profile of your organization to include in the draft of your strategic plan, so your stakeholders have a more complete understanding of your organization. When writing your profile, you might briefly describe its history, including its first products and services, its current products and services, and the markets and communities they serve, charts of the organization, including its departments, board members, and employees. Mention any previous strategic priorities of the organization. You could mention significant events during its history, for example, expansions or mergers. Mention the significant successes during its history. Be sure to document your profile in Appendix C of your adaptable template. After clarifying who or what your organization is now, the next step is to clarify where your organization is now. Depending on the model of strategic planning that you chose in Part 2, that might mean taking a wide look around the outside of your organization, the inside, or both. Next, you will analyze the results and select the most important strategic priorities to include in your strategic plan. Looking around is really a form of research, but it should not be overwhelming. If you have very limited resources, then you might assign a small committee to spend at least a day on this work. As you go through the following guidelines, make a list of what opportunities your organization might have and another list of what threats it might be facing. Don't forget to ask your local librarians for help. First, consider what groups of people might have a strong stake or interest in your organization, such as investors, funders, collaborators, suppliers, and other vendors. What do they want from your organization? Then consider what laws and regulations might affect you now and in the future. For example, laws affecting your customers are how you deliver your services. Then consider important trends, including political, economic, social, and technological. Your handout, How to Take a Wide Look Outside Your Organization, lists questions to ask for each of these trends. Next, think about your competitors. What are they doing? Which are succeeding? Which are failing? How might that affect you? Think about any new innovations or technologies in your field. Ask some experts what they are and how these might affect you. The handout, How to Take a Wide Look Outside Your Organization, can be very helpful now. It is very important that you have a very good understanding of the priorities of your current and potential customers. Perhaps you could assign a committee of your lead personnel to discuss and ideally quickly research answers to the following questions. What customers do we currently serve? Are they satisfied with us? What new offerings might we provide to them? How do we know? What new customers might we serve? What are their needs? What current or new offerings might we provide them? Again, how do we know? Your handout, How to Decide Your Most Important Strategic Priorities, will guide you through these specifics. Then think about your competitors. Think about these questions. What are their offerings? How does their pricing compare to ours? How do they promote their services? What seem to be the strengths and weaknesses of their offerings? What can we learn from them? Again, your handout will guide you through these specifics. The results of this research can go into your list of opportunities and threats that we will analyze soon. A list of opportunities is unique to each organization. However, here's a sample list that might be useful for further identifying your opportunities. Increasing needs for current products, programs, and services among current customers. Opportunities to develop new products for new customers. New relationships to build on. For example, new collaborators or suppliers that you could benefit from. New technologies or innovations that you could use soon. For example, for product development and delivery. Changes in laws that you could benefit from. For example, laws that open new markets or made your products even more desirable. Major competitors who are leaving your current markets. Document your list in Appendix C of your adaptable template. The list of threats is also unique to each organization. Here is a sample list. Shrinking markets for your products. Less access to your current customers for some reason. More competition in your markets. Poor relationships with investors and funders, collaborators, and suppliers. Current investors or funders less likely to support you in the future because of their new priorities. Laws and regulations that might adversely affect you. List those threats in Appendix C as well. Most models of strategic planning suggest that you look closely at the quality of operations inside of your organization. It is especially important in the issues-based and alignment models of planning. The examination is often called an organizational assessment. The assessment should look at all of your operations. For example, how well the board of directors is operating, at each of your products and services, and at your finances and staffing. That is not as hard as it might sound. Use a very focused and efficient organizational assessment tool. Your strategic planning committee could select one that matches the culture and expertise of your organization. There are several very good and free ones on the web at managementhelp.org. The use of tools is more accurate and reliable than asking employees how they feel about those operations. They might have strong biases about them. After all, they are the ones who are doing those operations. Then divide the findings into operations that are doing very well and those that are not. This represents a list of your organization's strengths and of its weaknesses. Your handout, How to Take a Good Look Inside Your Organization, will be helpful now. Each organization has a unique list of strengths. However, here's a sample list that might be useful to you. Excellent products, services, and programs, including the results they achieve and how they are delivered. strong governance from your board of directors, and strong leadership among employees. Great relationships with stakeholders, for example, customers, investors, collaborators, and suppliers. Strong public image among your stakeholders. Highly skilled and committed employees. Consistently strong finances. Document your list of strengths in Appendix C of your adaptable template. Now look at your list of weaknesses. Here's a sample list. Notice that they're often the opposite of what can appear as strengths. Poor products, programs, and services. Poor governance and management. Poor relationships with stakeholders. Poor public image. Low morale and motivation among employees. Frequent shortages of cash. If you have 3 or more areas of significant weakness, then you should consider using the issues-based model of strategic planning, as we talked about in Part 2 of this course. Document your list of weaknesses in Appendix C of your adaptable template. Now that you have taken a good look around the outside, inside, or both, you are ready to analyze your results and decide the strategic priorities to get you where you want to be. Remember that your priorities are what you want to accomplish, and your action plans are how to accomplish it. So you don't need to do a lot of planning now about how to address each priority. That will come in Part 4. Now in Part 3 is when your strategic thinking is needed more than ever. The approach or tool that you choose to analyze your results depends on the purpose of your planning. Be assured that each tool is freely available on the web. Just use your web browser to find it by its name. The handout for this topic lists the following as well. If the purpose is to grow your organization, then use the Product Market Matrix. It guides you to look at current and new products for current and new customers. If the purpose is to make decisions about current products, then use the Market Growth Market Share Matrix. A nonprofit might use the Mission Money Matrix. If the purpose is to best position your entire organization, then the SWOT matrix can be very useful. If the purpose is to strengthen internal systems, then you might use a force field analysis. You might also use a life stage model. This course includes a handout about this model. If the purpose is to develop a certain product or program, then you should do a business plan for each product and a program plan for each program. It would be wise not to include those other plans in your strategic plan. Otherwise, your plan could become so large that people are reluctant to use it. All of these tools can not only help you make sense of your information, but can also suggest which of your priorities to include in your plan. There are many other tools to use to analyze the results of your research. For example, mind mapping, root cause analysis, and networking analysis. Be sure to pick an approach that matches your expertise and culture. Your handout, How to Decide Your Most Important Strategic Priorities, will be useful now. As an example of a straightforward tool to analyze your results, we'll use the SWOT matrix. SWOT is an acronym for Strengths, Weaknesses, Opportunities, and Threats. There are variations on how to use this matrix. We'll explain it this way. First, look at your list of strengths and think about how they might be used to take advantage of your opportunities. Those are priorities you should invest in. For example, select a priority. By January 1st, 2015, double our investment in our strong product XYZ for the elderly to take advantage of opportunities in the increasing number of seniors. Then, look at your list of strengths and think about how they might be used to ward off the threats. Those are priorities you might defend. For example, select a priority. By January 1st, 2015, use 10% of our strong cash reserves on a promotions campaign for product XYZ to ward off the threat of increasing competition in that market. Next, look at your opportunities and weaknesses. Those are priorities to decide whether to invest in opportunities that might shore up weaknesses or to divest those weaknesses altogether. For example, select a priority. By January 1st, 2015, decide whether to A, invest 10% of our cash reserves in a promotions campaign for product XYZ to ward off competition, or B, to divest from that product altogether. Then look at your list of weaknesses and threats. Those are priorities to divest, if possible. For example, select a goal. By January 1st, 2015, close down our XYZ product line. Your handout, How to Decide Your Most Important Strategic Priorities, provides more guidelines for using this handy tool. You also have another handout, Useful Strategic Goals for Developing Your Organization. That describes another tool called the Life Stage Approach to Deciding Strategic Priorities. It is very timely now during strategic planning to think about how your organization should best distinguish itself to your stakeholders, including to your customers. That can mean the difference between surviving and thriving. What is or should be your organization's core competence? A core competence is a unique capability that your organization has that would be greatly appreciated by your customers and would be difficult for your competitors to quickly duplicate. What business are you really in? The correct answer to that question can open up many opportunities for you. For example, railroad companies used to think that they were in the business of railroads. However, they realized that their customers did not care about railroads. They cared about successful transportation. So the companies realized they were in the transportation business. Then they were much more able to relate to those customers, including to their needs and the ways to use the railroad to meet those needs. What is your unique value proposition? That proposition is what you can concisely convey to customers about how you are fully capable of providing them a unique service that will indeed benefit them. You might have a proposition for your entire organization and one for each of your products, programs, and services. The answers to these questions should be conveyed in all of your marketing and promotions. Your handout, How to Decide Your Most Important Strategic Priorities, mentions these guidelines. Document your answers in your adaptable template. After you have selected your strategic priorities, it's useful to look at each one more time before including them in your strategic plan. If a priority is found to not be all that important, then it might not warrant inclusion in your plan. For each priority, ask yourself, is it regarding the entire organization or just a small part of it? Is it based on strategic thinking or just wishful thinking? Is it really aligned with our mission and values, or is it so far removed from them that it could cause confusion and conflict? Is it really important, or is it just getting attention because it's a short-term urgent topic? If we don't address the priority, could that result in a bigger problem? Is it really within our control to effectively address the priority? If you answered no to any of these questions about a certain priority, then you might ask yourself whether it really belongs in a document as important as a strategic plan. After you have finalized your strategic priorities, then it might be useful to update your vision statement to even more accurately depict where you want your organization to be after it has addressed all of your priorities. And don't forget to list your goals in your adaptable template. It's time now to pause to reflect on your learnings so far. In your learning journal from CDI, write the answers to these questions. How can you know if you're not just wasting time in wordsmithing your mission statement, instead of adding real value to the real mission? How can you ensure that you are engaging in strong strategic thinking rather than in unrealistic wishful thinking? Write down the answers to those important questions in your learning journal. We've reached the end of Part 3. Part 4 shares practical guidelines and handouts to help you develop action plans to address each of the strategic priorities that you identified in Part 3. Part 4 also helps you to finish documenting your strategic plan and to begin implementing it. If you ever have any questions or want to share feedback with us during the courses, simply send an email to info@consultantsdevelopmentinstitute.org. Again, thank you for your time during this video.